All right, welcome back to another video. It's been a little bit, but here we are. I haven't found the time yet to go back and create a summary video for videos 15 to 21, and I may not. I've been thinking about it, and I'm not sure how valuable it will be for my time. But anyway, we're going to carry on. In the essence of trying to plan more of the videos, I've spent a little bit of time writing some code for this one, and we're going to review that first and then continue on. One thing I found is we've been adding a lot of functionality, but we haven't really taken a step to make the app feel a bit better as we're using it. So I've just done a bunch of small styling changes throughout, which I will walk through. We've started to get into theming, and I'm starting to look into how the school table and the form interact. So that's where we'll continue with after I review the code. So to start, I think what I'll do is if we just go to the front end and we do a git diff, I'll sort of walk through these changes and then I'll show where they are in the code. So one small thing is the labels, for some odd reason, I don't know why they do this with ND, but this form is showing up down here right now. The labels were not bold before, and I found that they really needed some extra weight. So if you go to global styles, I added an ant form item label, which should modify all labels in the code, and I just set that font weight to 500. If we continue on, I've created a new theme provider component. So with AntD, you can modify a variety of things in the theme of AntD without like overriding styles. They sort of provide a theme provider. So that code's here. You can find it in the documentation as well. And all I've done is I've changed that primary color. You can look at all the parameters you can change, and I'll probably change them as we go. But if you want to make your app look a little bit different, feel free to. But this allows you to modify various parameters and variables for the theme of AntD in our code base. And then that's just in the providers folder. If you go to our index, we import our theme provider and we wrap the whole application in it so that the whole application has the theme applied. In addition, base data provider was this component that renders immediately just so that we can fetch some constants so that we have the constants available before, like as we load the app, before we access any other pages. And that doesn't actually need to wrap everything unless we're stopping the app from loading while that's going, which I don't want to do. So rather than wrapping everything, I've just moved it up here so it's a component in line with the theme provider. So both those components render at the same time. One of them gets data, and one of them is the app, essentially. If we keep going, I'm jumping all over the place. I removed the max width on our page container, and I've added it somewhere else, so I'll get to that. You can see here, this is in the, if I can read this properly, in the basic page component, this is the page we just used for all of our pages, but it's sort of our base wrapper. I moved the max width in here so that if you close the sidebar, you'll see, if you close the sidebar, the table grows, where previously that max width was on the content. So if you close the container, everything would slide to the left, which is kind of defeats the purpose of being able to close this bar. So you can do that. I removed the breadcrumb from the basic page because we weren't using it at all and it was hard-coded to something super random. I've updated the footer, which you can do as well. That's all on the basic page. We used to have a table header component, and I've moved it into a tables wrappers file in the tables folder, which makes a bit more sense than a file on its own. So just moved the code there, nothing special. And then if we go into create school, this is the create school form. We now have a hide form function, so the cancel button on the create school form wasn't doing anything. If you click cancel, it calls a method which hides it now. So that's what canceling the form does. I removed all the label column and wrapper column on the form because that was adding some weird spacing that I didn't really like. I set required mark optional, so now rather than every required field being marked as required, optional fields will be marked as optional, which there are way less than, so it's a bit less distracting. And I set the max width on the form to 320, just because we don't need that much space for this form. I added a title of level 4, so that makes it an H4 header, so that you know what the purpose of the form is. We'll probably change that as we move forward. And oh, I talked about the cancel button. I guess I must have added this previously. I added a cancel button to the form, which you likely don't have. So if you look at this, I don't even think I need, I think text line, yeah, text line right here actually moves the buttons to the right side rather than the left side, which is Andy's default, which feels super weird to me. But then added a space here so the buttons are evenly spaced, add a cancel button, which calls that hide form method, which we will see in a second. In the schools table, um, as you've been working through the code, you might have been running into this issue where when you clicked refresh, you got like a school categories undefined. That was because this was running previously to render the table column data, but if it finds nothing, you need to return an empty string. So I moved this into a method rather than inline here, because otherwise find would return undefined, which was causing that error. That's just a formatting change. I modified the school to how the school table and create school form are shown, but we're going to continue modifying that, so don't worry about it too much. Base data provider doesn't require children anymore, as I discussed. It's just rendered beside the app when we fetch those constants. And I changed the table size to 10 so that we see a bit more data because the 4 was starting to look super weird. So that's everything. Yeah, that's everything that I've changed off screen. Lots of small formatting things. Take your time going through that, and then you'll arrive here. So this feels a lot better. There's a bit more data. You can close this and open it, and the table stretches. And now we have that green color. You can change it to whatever you want. There's no longer a breadcrumb at the top, which didn't make any sense. And now let's move forward. So one thing I wanted to do is when you're adding data, like when you're adding schools into this table, previously this was on a new page, the create school form, and the form is so small that it feels excessive to have it on a separate page. So I was going to change this so that the form shows up to the right side of the table so you can just add records and immediately see them. So let's continue in that. An issue I was running into, so if we close all this and we go to our schools component, an issue I was running into was, so I added this, if we import, yeah, I'm just like undoing quickly. If you import space from ent_d and then you add space in between these so they're spaced evenly, it puts them in a row. But the issue is when you click cancel, is the table isn't taking that space back. I wonder if the space, like we need one of the components to grow to take that space, right? Space is essentially a flex box, by the way, if you weren't aware. So that's center. We want to do a line start on our space so that is at the top. Let's do that really quick. Double check. So that's at the top. It's a little bit weird, but we'll get to it. Let's close that code. What was it doing? Oh yeah, one of the items to grow. Let's see, align space size vertical, basic. Let's see, empty space with flex grow. Oh, yeah, I could do row as well, which might be better. Set an option somewhere in here, row. You can see here's the flex value on those columns. I'm surprised space wouldn't have something for this. Direction, default horizontal, align, size, default small, split, wrap, compact mode. Let's do it. I'm going to see what compact does to ours. I don't quite understand it. Sometimes you just need to, oh, it doesn't have a line anymore. Oh, it just like removes. Okay, we don't want that. Oh, wait, what am I doing? I wonder if we add a flex to this. So I'm going to const wrapper equals style div flex one import styled from styled components. Now we just have a wrapper for this component so that you don't need to see the CSS when you're reading the HTML. You just know you have a wrapper with some styles at the top. Let's inspect this. It's probably here. It's saying invalid property. Flex grow. It might. Oh, here's the space. Yeah, display inline flex on line items. And if I put flex value 1 on this, flex 0. Oh, I need the flex box to take the full width. That's likely. Like if I do like width 100% on this, I bet you it works. Great, cool. There we go. So I just need an elegant way to have width 100%. Which I'm not seeing. I bet you wrap doesn't do anything in this case. Wrap equals true. Wants a boolean, which is fair. Go to refresh. Category option is undefined. Yeah, so wrap's not doing anything. I think we just need to add a style width 100%. So the space thing should take up the full page, and that way the flex will work as well. See, this category option is undefined. Let's see what that is. Similar to the error we had with the school options. Oh. Yeah, this is exactly the error. But we only use it in this. JavaScript check if variable is undefined. I think we're doing it properly, aren't we? Wait, you're actually supposed to use it? Oh, that's so. Let's try null. See if we get it again. And the width 100% did not. Oh, do I need flex 1 on this as well? Oh my goodness. That's kind of ugly. Why do I have flex 1 on it? Oh, maybe it's the child component. So do refresh. Oh yeah, I see. So this is the thing that's with 100%. The space element actually creates two other elements, and then our flex is inside this and space item. I'm so surprised this doesn't add like flex options. Let's just make our own. I'm gonna call it flex space. It's gonna be display flex. Flex direction by default is row, but I'd like to be explicit. Align items top. We're just going to maybe to make like so it doesn't have to be so generic, we can actually put this in our tables wrappers, and we can call it like when you have a form in a table, this is going to be the inline table form space, right? So then every time we have a table in a form, they'll be consistently styled rather than trying to make like a super generic component. Sometimes I like this more, especially before we know what we want to build in the future. And align items top won't be that often. Usually you do center, so. All right, let's see if I go back here and import inline. Yeah, that's the one. Using it instead of space. Space is defined but never used. Do a refresh. There we are. So like much simpler, and we can just use this for all of our inline table form things moving forward. So one thing is, this still feels a bit weird. Like I think the create school button should probably go away when you're looking at the form, because if you click it, it does nothing at this point, right? So if we go to our school table, okay. And now we need to pass this prop into there, which kind of sucks, but so we're going to pass whether the form is visible into the table as well. All right, change of plans, just undo that is form visible. I think it also makes sense if this form aligns with the top of the table rather than the top of the page. So we need this form to actually be inside the table component, inside here, so that I can go in line with the table but stay below the table header, which means is form visible, insert new data. How complicated is this component? I'm going to take this entire table and I'm going to put it inside our index file. All right, gotta be careful with how I do this so I don't miss anything. So we just copied over that. We need to define our columns. Actually, the alternative is, let me think about this a second longer before we jump ahead. All this table header does is call a method, which is a prop. Instead of doing all that, we're going to take the table header out, and we're going to put the table header in the basic page. And this way, set is form visible doesn't need to be a prop anymore. Right? We don't need this in here, we don't need this in here, we don't need these in here. That's no longer a prop, we can get rid of that. So our school table just got a lot simpler. We just need to import table header from there. From ant D, we're not importing anything yet. Import, what do I use? Just title and button. Title and title comes from topography, so import topography and button. Const title. If you weren't aware of this style where you're doing like const title, that means this has multiple definitions of it, and you're deconstructing title and assigning it to the title or the word const. It also has other things in here, but I hope you understand that at this point. I probably should have covered that way earlier. Okay, let's see if this renders or if I've missed something. Great, school. Perfect. So now we just need to hide that. So if the form isn't visible, then render the button. I'm just going to change this. I had the question mark syntax because I was experimenting, but we can just do the double and. Double and is like, if this is true, render it. Question mark is, if this is true, render this, otherwise render this. So do a refresh. Great, it's cool. So that button goes away. Click cancel. So this form is changing quite a bit. Initially, it was entirely designed to be its own separate page. Now, with all these changes, we're going to have to modify a few things. I think, what other title props are there? I think we can remove, seems like a lot of margin top for that, right? Somewhere. Where are they getting that margin top? What? There's margin bottom. Is it from the form? What? All right. Let's put a topography in here. Do these have margin top on them? Copyable, editable, ellipsis, strong. Can I just modify style for now? Style. See if that changes it. Wait, that doesn't even change it? Margin top, 0. All right, so that style isn't even modifying it. It's probably because I'm putting it in the wrong place, isn't it? It's here. Much better. I think 0 might be a bit too much. Margin is currently, they're doing M's. I'm just going to do 0.5 M. We'll probably move that out into something to make it so that when we do other forms like this, it stays consistent. One thing is this whole form. Let's see if AntD offers it. Every time I'm about to make a style change, I'm pretty much checking AntD to see if they offer it out of the box. Otherwise, we need to figure out a way to override it and do what we want. But I'd like to add some background color on this form so it's its own card. So that it's its own card. And I think that'll feel a lot better beside this because the table is its own card as well. But for some reason, am I just not seeing forms? Form imported from AntD. Sandy check real quick. There it is. I guess Control F doesn't work on that. So let's see, any background colors on these? Or is it something I need to do myself? Okay, looks like something I'm gonna do myself. So if we go to our school tag, go to create school, so this style is gonna get expanded. We'll probably wanna move this into something as well. So background color, we'll wanna move these into like the background color white. That color white should probably come from the AntD theme as well somewhere. So we'll need to use a variable there instead of hard coding it, but for now, it's fine. A little bit of padding, 12, and then border radius 6. Let's see what that looks like. All right, so not quite what we want, but much better than what we had. Now we can go back to 0 on this. So we'll get it really nice, and then we're essentially designing while we code, which is not good practice, but we'll make it how we want it, and then we will make it reusable so we can use it in other places. All right. One thing is, I don't think this needs to take the whole height. Is it justify content? No, is it line items? What do I have? I have it as top, right? Oh, we want to do start so that we don't. What do I have? Oh, I had top. Okay, so start makes it so that it doesn't take up the full width of the container there. So if we go to our table wrappers, we can just do align item start. Perfect. And let's check all this padding. There's a lot of margin. That's margin, right? Yeah. And this anti-form item. So that's on this form item down here. I'm gonna do margin. Actually, you know what might be cheeky? Is if we do. So it's getting that from add form item, right? Just copy that so that we can overwrite it. I just cut it by accident, that's okay. Okay, now if we go to our global styles, right here we could do add form item, and if we do last of type here, we can say the last form item in each form should have no margin on the bottom, because we might start putting a lot of margin in cards like this. Okay, and then rather than doing this cancel button down here, because this sort of feels like a little bit of a modal now, we're actually going to put we're going to put a button up here. Let me undo real quick. Copy that button. We're going to need it. Put it up here. And we're going to make it an icon button. So if we go to buttons, and here they had an example. That first one's pretty good. Shape circle, let's grab the shape and the icon there. So type default, shape circle icon. Now we need an icon. Icon, close, or yeah, close outlined, that's what we want. Import close out. Where else do we have an icon? It's on our table filters, right? Quantity table filter. Add the icons, okay. Outlined from there. I'm going to double from there. So use that icon instead. Now we can remove this cancel button down here, remove the spacing, and let's see what we have. Space is defined but never used. Oops. All right, do a little bit of refresh. We probably don't want the words in there if we're going to make it a round icon. So you can end that tag there and then remove the text there. Perfect. Now we just need that inline. I think what I'm going to do is we have this table header, like styled component. I am going to create a forms folder, and here I'm going to create a form wrappers file. Generally, when I say wrappers, I mean styled components. We can do form header here, display flex, flex direction row, align item center, space between. Perfect. Now if we go here, we can import form header. And if we use that around these two, they will be in a flex box, they will be aligned in a row, they will be aligned center, and they will have space between them, so they'll take as much space as possible. Something like that. And we just need to get rid of, I think we just say margin 0 for everything on that header. And then we go to our form wrappers and we do like margin bottom here. Put the margin on the form header instead. So it looks a little bit better. Still definitely not perfect. But now we can close this. We can click create school. We can say a new school. Select a few things. Click. Oh, it's weird the width. We'll need to make it a fixed width, actually, I think. We can click create, and that adds the new row somewhere. I think it added it to the top, but maybe the bottom. And then it resets the form. Okay, so close that. So now you can quickly add schools and see the data that you're looking at to make sure you're not like adding duplicates, to compare the data you're entering, to see maybe if you're doing a lot of data entry, if you've already entered a row. And putting the form inside the table, it's better designed for sort of fast entry because you might be entering a lot and quickly entering, where if you're entering occasionally, and because it's simple, but we're going to get to the point where we'll put forms on different pages because it may have like 15 fields rather than 3. But and we'll make an example like that at some point. But for now, I think that's where I'm going to stop. Yeah, we have a new format for how we're creating schools. Format's not perfect, added some theming, and we'll continue iterating on this. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.